Hi everyone, it's Nicole here today with some fun critter graduation cards to share with you. These cards were kind of reworked. Originally, a couple of these cards were created like more than a year ago, featuring the dogs. And these are images from the My Favorite Things Four-Legged Friends stamp set. And I kind of combined lots of different things. Those greetings from that, a die-cut congrats from Winnie and Walter, and then some stenciling in the background using the My Favorite Things cloud stencil. And I had never done anything with these. I had always intended to create a video and hadn't got around to it. And so this year I was still needing a few more graduation cards. I've shared one idea already this year. It was for a little bit more elegant. These are a little bit more whimsical and fun. And I'm using my absolute all-time favorite Page Huggers stamp set and dies from Mama Elephant to share some more ideas for using cute critters for graduation cards. And they both are going to feature the graduation caps from the Mama Elephant Page Huggers stamp set, but we're going to use critters from both Page Huggers and then the My Favorite Things Four-Legged Friends. And I used the My Favorite Things stencil with Peacock Feathers Distress Oxide ink to create the sky backgrounds for all 5 cards. Very quick and easy. I kind of like the cloudy up in the sky kind of visual for graduation cards. I like it all the time. But I do like it for graduation cards, like when you're throwing the graduation caps up in the air, which is kind of the feeling we're going for with these cards. Now I'm backing a piece of fun foam with stick-it adhesive on both sides, replacing one side with some smooth white cardstock. I like to run it through my die cutting machine with the stick-it to really get the adhesive to stick to the foam, and then replace the backing paper with cardstock. I'm going to use a couple different congrats dies today. The Winnie and Walter from the original cards, I believe, is only available from the Winnie and Walter website. That is the more kind of traditional font you see there. The scripty font is my favorite one from Mama Elephant. I absolutely love this big congrats, and I'm going to die cut that a couple of times too. I'm also going to use the Mama Elephant Landscape Trio Cloudy Border die. This die has been around for several years now, continues to be one of my all-time most used and favorite dies. And I'm going to die cut a border for each card. I'm going to grab all 4 Page Hugger critters from the Page Huggers stamp set. I have used this stamp set so many times, and it continues to be a favorite. For me, that is the telltale sign of a really great stamp set. What I love is that these little guys' arms are die cut so they can hold on to things. In this case, they're going to be holding on to a diploma and holding on to the edge of the cloud kind of tucked behind. I'm going to need multiple graduation caps, 3 per card, and 1 diploma per card. Now, something a little different that I didn't do on my original cards, and like I said, I had never really shared them. I had created them away from home, I think at a retreat with friends. I hadn't mailed them out. So I made them all work for this year, but I had not added diplomas to my originals. And so I went ahead and stamped extra diplomas and added those to the card just because I really like that little addition of those to the dog themed critter cards. I'm going to color everything in with Copic markers. I've left the coloring in for those of you who really enjoy watching the coloring process. This is for you. I always like watching it too, so I'm totally with you there. And this is just coloring in these cute little guys. These are probably my go-to. I don't necessarily write down my color combinations other than in my video, and I guess I've not gone back to look at any past ones. But this is probably very similar to what I've used in the past. I tend to gravitate towards warm grays for my mice, browns for my bear. You could definitely go with blacks. I think I have even done that in the past. This is one of my tried and true color combinations, and I've got to tell you guys, I had to stop the video partway through and refill that E43 marker. It was so dry. So it's much smoother sailing from here on out. I did not color my critters all the way down to their feet. And that is because that part's going to be tucked behind the clouds. The clouds are not vellum. You're not going to be able to see them. So I didn't waste the time coloring that part. I just colored down far enough so that when I tuck these little guys back behind the clouds, you don't see any white. I'm also using quite a bit of little dot detail to add extra texture and interest to these. And you could use as many of these as you wanted. You could really fill in that whole little cloudy edge there. Maybe use 3, maybe even 4. Or you could use 1 per card if you want to spread it out and get more cards for your coloring efforts if you wanted to. Or you could do like I did, and I used 2 of these per card. The dogs from the My Favorite Things 4-Legged Friends, that is only going to feature 1 of those dogs per card. That's kind of how I had originally started out, and so I didn't switch it up. The bunny is going to be a little bit lighter warm grays. We're just going to pull in warm gray 0, 0, and 1, and the darkest color will be warm gray 4 instead of the warm gray 6 from the mouse. So just a tiny bit lighter. A little bit more pink in the cheeks, pink in the ears. And then for the cat, I really wanted to do kind of a orange tabby type of look. And so we're going to do a nice base of E31, pull in a little E33 for shading, and then E37 and 35 are going to be the tabby stripes. And originally I just did E35, and when I went to blend that out, I really felt like it kind of got lost just a little bit. So I'm going to go over each of these with E37. I can go back over it with E35 if I need to. And then I went over the whole cat again with E31 to help mute those stripes a little bit, soften the edges, really give the fur a little bit softer, sweeter look. And then we'll add little pink cheeks and a little pink nose. So, so cute. I even went back in and added some little darker areas in a few little places. So everything on the critters is definitely geared more towards the neutral side of the color palette. For my graduation caps, these can be whatever color for the school that you have a graduate that you need a card for. For me, the high school colors are red and blue. The boys wear blue, the girls wear red. Very easy. So when you see my graduation cards, this is probably what you see 99% of the time, unless I have a graduate from somewhere else, which every once in a while we will. But this is what I do. Obviously, you are going to want to gear these towards your recipient. So switch it up with whatever colors work for you. One of the great things about coloring all the critters neutral is anything works. Anything goes, and any cap looks great on them. This graduation cap is by far my favorite that I have in my collection, and I have used it multiple times to create graduation cards, no matter the critter. The My Favorite Things dogs, the 4-legged friends, they're wearing this graduation cap too. I have used it for other cards where I haven't used the page hugger critters. It's just fantastic. I really like the size of it and the scale, and it works for so many cards. Now, when all of my images are colored in, I'm going to use the coordinating 4-legged friends and page huggers dies to die cut everything. I'm using a black jelly roll pen to add detail to the eyes on all of my critters, whether it be the 4-legged friends or the page huggers. That really makes their eyes pop nice. And then we're ready to kind of start putting it all together. We're going to start with that cloudy border across the bottom edge. I will mention my original cards. I adhered everything flat to the card. The only thing dimensional was the die cut greeting. For these, I decided to kind of raise everything up But before I do that, there is stamping directly on the background. And I highly recommend, if you're going to stamp something directly on the background and not stamp it on a separate piece of paper and layer it on, that you do that before you start adhering dimensional embellishments. Otherwise, it sometimes is really hard to get a good stamped impression. So I laid out my images so I had a good guide so I could gauge where to stamp them. For the Four-Legged Friends card, I am going to use that same sentiment, the pause and enjoy the moment. It's also from that Four-Legged Friends My Favorite Things stamp set, and I'm going to stamp that with black. The congrats goes on all of the cards. You could use whatever kind of congrats die you have. You can use whatever critters you have. My hope is that this inspires you maybe to think outside the box a little bit with your critter dies and create some graduation cards or whatever you might need. But this time of year, I generally am needing Mother's Day cards and graduation cards, and so I have a lot of those. For the second design, we're going to mix and match something a little different with the Simon Says stamp messages for every day. This is one of my favorite new stamp sets. I love when Simon does greeting stamp sets that have tons of little, very classic, thin strip style greetings. A lot of times I like to stamp these on a separate piece of paper, emboss it, trim it into a thin strip, add it to a card. You could totally do that here if you wanted to. To keep this kind of easy and a little bit more consistent with the rest of the designs, I'm going to stamp the sentiment, "Yay, you did it," right there on my card. And I used the Congrats Scripty die from Mama Elephant as a guide to know where to do this. And I'm simply going to do this on both of my remaining backgrounds. The VersaFine ONYX black ink is my absolute favorite ink for a really crisp black impression. Then I'm simply going to tuck my critters over that Landscape Trio cloud border, add foam adhesive to the back of this, the back of my critters. I'm just kind of piecing it all together to get this all nice and fit in here. And then we're going to pop this along the bottom edge of the card design. And I like the dimension. I think the little bit of dimension works really nice with the dimensional die cut greeting. And then we'll have a few little scattered embellishments. Now, I only put one graduation cap on the critters just to kind of keep it from having to color additional graduation caps. You could put one on each if you wanted to, but I put one on one critter and then the other one I left it off. Now, on those dimensional die cut greetings, we die cut a little earlier. I'm going to pop those out and place them on my Easy Clean mat and then pounce on a little Candied Apple Distress Oxide ink, where I'm going to keep the ink a little darker down near the bottom and lighten it up as I get towards the top of my die cut. It gives it a little bit of an ombre effect, and that red really pops. Again, this is where I would totally use the school colors for your graduate and change that greeting to whatever coordinates really well with your graduation caps. Then I'm going to add the graduation caps that are thrown up in the air with foam adhesive. So both of these are going to be adhered with foam adhesive as well. I'm going to take some glossy accents and go over the Congrats greeting. This gives it an awesome glossy finish. I think before the glossy accents, the Congrats looks a little bit more matte finish. This is going to give it a glossy finish, obviously glossy accents, but I think it really makes the red pop. Any color you'd put underneath it, it's going to pop really nicely. I put all three of my remaining cards together exactly the same. Over on the right side, you can see the My Favorite Things Four-Legged Friends dog with his little diploma sitting there. He's sitting in the clouds. Very similar in design, just switching up sentiments, switching up the kind of Congrats die used. So I hope this inspires you to maybe look in your collection and see if you have some similar products that you could use to create a similar card. I'm going to finish off these cards with a scattering of Pretty Pink Posh. silver mini star confetti adhered with Ranger Multi-Matte Medium. I'm using a jewel picker to pick them up and put them in place. My original 2 cards, I know that at the retreat I was at, I didn't have a ton of embellishments. And I think I just had these little kind of clear discs, which I used on my card. And I like those a lot. So I just actually went back in and added some silver star confetti either on top or around them to finish them off and kind of add to the whole look and add a few additional stars to these cards as well. So there's adding some of those to the center of some of those little clear discs, and just a couple more not layered on the discs to round it all out really nicely. Once I get this done, I'm going to show you a look at all 5 of the cards. 3 of them are created with the My Favorite Things 4-legged friends, and 2 of them with more of the page huggers type of images. So just the critters and greeting are switched up, but other than that, very, very similar in design, very fun, and I stamped a way to go on the inside of the card, also from that Simon Says Stamp Messages for Everyday stamp set. Thanks for joining me today for these fun critter graduation cards. The supplies I used to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring graduation card ideas you might be interested in. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.